And we're live! Hello all and welcome, and I'm the Realist Philosopher, and this is the Realist Philosopher live call-in show, if somebody calls in today. So how you all doing today? Hope you're all doing good, fine, and well. Doing all right? Feeling okay? Got a lot of Java, got a thermos full of it here, and another cup, so I got 3 cups of coffee just waiting to be sucked down, and I'm going to need it. I'm going to need all that caffeine to get through this show. There's a lot of craziness going on in the world today. I thought about talking about that Game of Thrones. You know, I thought about doing like a special video or part of this show talking about it. Everybody seems to be talking about it. Everybody's doing videos on it. That was part of the reason why I said, I'm not going to really do a video about it. But I will do a short intro about it. Just, a few comments, give my point of view. So, everybody and their mother knows who this show is. Even in other countries, this show is very popular. Everybody knows this friggin' show. I got to say, I was a little let down. I mean, granted, when I first watched it, I thought, oh, this is great. This is awesome. Yeah, there's so much happening, except can't see any of it. So that's my first major gripe, the lighting, all right? It's dark. It's supposed to be dark. The mood is dark. But that doesn't mean that the fucking lighting has to match the mood, okay? So that was my number one problem with it. It was too fucking dark. I couldn't see what was going on. I guess it's a good way to save money. I mean, if there's nothing to see, they're not having to spend money on CGI and shit. And by the way, you know what really annoys me? I'm watching this fucking show and I'm thinking, I waited 2 years for this? They had all these excuses for why they had to extend it. You know, we've been waiting 2 fucking years. It's been 2 years since fucking season 7 ended. And they're like, well, you know, there's just too much material and we just can't cram into production. We can't cram in the production required to get it done in 1 year. Yeah. When I was young, they'd have gotten it fucking done. They'd have put their nose to the fucking grindstone and they would have worked. And there would have been no fucking excuses. And it probably would have turned out better than this. What a bunch of bullshit. It took us 2 years to make this garbage. That was my problem, number 1. Too fucking dark. Number 2, the Dothraki. They got fucking massacred. I mean, my God, they got wiped out almost immediately. Talk about stupid tactics. You got 100,000, and it was more than 100,000, right? I mean, by the time they destroyed Hardhome and, had wiped out whatever people were still in between the wall and Winterfell, you got well over 100,000 dead people. Now, live horses, they mow down live people real easy, right? Horse slams into person, person becomes pancake, person's ribs get crushed, person dies. Doesn't work with undead people. They're dead. Fucking A, they can survive a lot of shit, all right? Because they're not alive, so... Well, survive's the wrong word, but they won't be destroyed by that. So, I don't know what they were thinking. Not to mention the fact that these fucking undead, when you saw the attacks later on in the episode, were packed together like sardines. There wasn't a bit of space between any of them. So, I don't know who thought that hitting this army head on with a bunch of horses was going to have any effect. I didn't like that, first of all. So, the show starts, and it's all fucking dark. I guess I'm going to talk about this more than I wanted to. Oh, God. Show starts, it's fucking dark, then that Melisandre bitch comes out of nowhere. Right? They got to close her story arc somehow, I guess. So, she walks over, she lights all their fucking swords on fire. Hold up your swords, Dothraki. They hold up these ridiculous fucking blades they use. And she lights all the fucking things on fire. Ooh, 40,000 burning swords. That'll wipe out the enemy. No. Again, they're packed together like fucking sardines, and they seem to be stronger than living human beings. So the fucking horses probably just hit this wall of undead and bounced right off them, immediately got surrounded and overwhelmed and died. I would be very surprised if any of those Dothraki even got to kill one white, which would, explain why there were so many. It didn't seem like the force had been diminished in any way. You might be thinking, 40,000 Dothraki, they must have each destroyed at least one white. No, obviously not. That was my other gripe, number 2. They charged what they couldn't see. You can't see what's going on. That was my problem, number 2. So, why are you charging? You don't know what you're charging at. They could have a line of fucking giants. You don't know what the fuck is there. They could have a bunch of goddamn undead fucking polar bears waiting for you. The fucking Night King could have killed every fucking wolf and squirrel and fucking hawk and whatever he could get his hands on between there and the wall. He could have had an army not only of humans, but of animals as well. That was another thing I had a problem with. We know from season 7 that, I mean, fuck, they're riding fucking undead horses too. We've known since season 1. They can animate more than just people. So that's another issue. Why didn't the Night King have animals in his army as well? In addition to people, he could have fucking polar bears, seals, I don't know. But something other than people, right? People are not the most effective fighters, right? He changed the dragon into an undead white. Why not some fucking polar bear? So I don't get that. But anyway, so they ram into the undead force. They can't see. What kind of fucking cavalry charges somebody head on anyway like that? At least that you can see. Let alone you can't see. Stupid. Very stupid. Another thing was the fucking artillery. They had all these trebuchets and all these fucking catapults. They used them once. Idiotic. Did you consider shooting some fucking flaming, pitch-filled fucking clay balls, whatever you were using, that exploded with fire on impact? Did you ever consider firing a bunch of those so that you could see the undead that were coming at you? We don't have the budget for that. We got to make it real dark. And that way we don't have to spend all this money on CGI for all these undead that we'd have to fucking then create with CGI. Oh, it's such a headache. You had 2 years, pinheads. You had 2 fucking years. It takes you that long, really? So it's dark as a motherfucker. We got all these fucking bombs that we can drop on them that explode in pitch and fire, and fire creates light. Or why did they just shoot some of this shit before the cavalry charge? So the cavalry charge is the Dothraki charge, and what happens? Then they start shooting, the fucking artillery, but they only fire one. Only one volley over the charging cavalry. Because, of course, if they keep firing, then they'll be hitting some Dothraki, which probably wouldn't actually be the case because the Dothraki didn't even make it into the ranks, in most cases, of the enemy. They got stopped by that tightly packed sardine fucking squished wall of fucking undead. So, yeah. And they only used them once, and then they left them outside the walls. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant fucking strategy. One of your best weapons against the undead. I mean, one of anyway, because, you'd actually be able to see your enemy and fire. Where's the pitch? Where's the burning pitch? Where's the burning oil? There was no burning oil used in this whole fucking battle either. Don't get me started on all the problems with the tactics. I'm going to go into some of the major ones, though. So, the Dothraki, all their little fucking swords get snuffed out. I think that was just for that effect. I think they just wanted you to be able to see the little fucking burning swords because, we don't want to spend the money on CGI so that you actually be able to see the people that are holding those swords and then they get snuffed out. And I guess that's for dramatic effect and all that. The Dothraki just get wiped out completely. Totally wasted, by the way. We've seen in prior episodes that they're very good archers, be it on horse or whatever. They're very good in close combat as well. They're well known for being excellent fucking fighters. Not just on horses, but off. You know where those Dothraki should have been? They should have been with everybody else in the fucking keep with a bow and arrow. And the main weapon that Winterfell should have been making was arrows. Millions and millions of motherfucking dragon glass tipped fucking arrows. If anybody's ever studied history, hello, British longbow, bitches. You could kill fucking knights in plate armor with that shit. And the way that these fucking undead were so packed together, they didn't have any cunning. These were not tactically minded. These were completely lacking intelligence. Charge, chomp, swing, bash. I mean, they're not intelligent. There's no space in between them. You could have had everybody in that fucking keep shooting arrows out over the fucking wall and you'd have hit something. And when you hit a white with dragon glass, I don't know if you have to hit it, in the torso or if you can just hit it somewhere in the body. The nature of the dragon glass, it's supposed to be fire, made solid. So I'm wondering if you could hit them anywhere on their body and that would just unmake them. It's probably the torso, but maybe it's just the arm. Maybe it just has to penetrate the skin and that's enough to unmake the undead. ones anyway, the mindless whites, not the White Walkers. I don't know, but they're so packed together. There's no space. You could just be firing arrows all fucking day and you're going to kill one of them. Battle over. But no, let's send 40,000 of what are probably some of our best archers because, it takes a lot of skill with a bow and fucking arrow to fire a bow and fucking arrow from a fucking horse. As we learned from the Mongol invasion, the French and all the European nations, they were shocked at the skill of these Mongols who could win battles just from fucking bow-wielding horsemen. They were so skilled at using the bow on horseback. Oh, no, let's charge them uselessly into this darkness, and we don't know what the fuck they're charging at. Brilliant. Brilliant idea. But anyway, totally wasted there. Don't get me started on the spikes surrounding fucking Winterfell. They were too short. They were very low. They weren't very effective. I mean, you had some of the undead laying down. I'll get to that. So, okay. Dothraki wiped out. Trebuchets, catapults, wasted. They're left outside the walls, and for some reason, there's none inside. Brilliant tactics. All these brilliant generals. Yeah, right. To best of the North. No. What about Jaime Lannister? This guy's been fighting for fucking 30 years or something. Fucking A. He couldn't see some of the problems with these defenses? No. What about fucking Tyrion? He might not be a tactical genius, but I mean, he came up with the battle of all the tactics that saved King's Landing during the Battle of the Blackwater. I mean, he's a cunning guy, very intelligent. He may not be a brilliant tactician, but he studied military history. He didn't see any of these problems? No? All right, so catapults wasted, trebuchets wasted. The undead then just suddenly come charging in, but you can't see them very well. And they just completely swamp the Unsullied. That brings me to my next fucking problem. Each Unsullied, there was one spear. That was it. Each guy, one spear. You know what the undead did? They just went in between the fucking spears. All these big fucking gaps. And you've got this overwhelming tidal wave wall of undead creatures just overwhelming you. Well, yeah, they're going over the spears, they're going between the spears, they're going under the motherfucking spears like water. They were overwhelming them that much. Now you might say, well, really, philosopher, if they were so overwhelming, a few more spears wouldn't have made a difference. You might have wiped out 10, 15, 20,000 more undead. That makes a difference, baby. Okay, so let me explain some things to you. So if any of you have ever studied some of the really old BC battle tactics or some of the Middle Ages, medieval times battle tactics, spearmen, pikemen, they would set up these walls of spears, several layers deep, sometimes more. You would have a man on the front line, okay, and his spear would be at chest center level. You'd have a man behind him on his knees. That spear would be at knee level. You'd have another man behind them with an even longer spear that was above the spear at mid level. So you would have 3 levels of spears, minimal. Some of these formations would have 4. And this was made to defeat cavalry charges from heavy fucking cavalry. And it worked, baby, because these fucking horses, they have brains. If they're watching where they're going, they don't charge off cliffs, and they don't charge into fucking thorny ass spikes. Okay? So, if you watch this episode very carefully, you've just got this one guy, one spear, that's it. How it should work, there'd be another guy behind him, an even longer spear that is essentially directed at the gap in between each soldier in the front line holding a spear at chest level, and the same case for the person standing behind them with an even longer spear, and that's going to be in between the gap between each soldier on the front line, but at head level. And sometimes there would be 4 layers, actually, of soldiers, and there'd be somebody way in the back with the longest pike, and that would be way up, pointing up at this kind of angle to stop anybody who might, If the charge did hit the wall, some nights some soldiers could get thrown over or try to jump over off their horse, and that would stop them. So literally, you could have 3 to 4 layers of spears, and they would fill in all the gaps, and there would have been no gap for the undead to get through. Now, of course, they would eventually have pushed their way through. They would have stacked up on these pikes, 3, 4, 5 deep, pushed onto them and killed, well, destroyed, because they're not alive, right? But they would have been destroyed and pushed onto these pikes, which would have then become useless because you got 3, 4, 5 bodies weighing them down, so then you have to throw it aside, and they would have been pushed onto them by the overwhelming weight of all the undead behind them. But at least you would have stopped the undead's charge to a certain extent and killed way more of them. But what happened, because you didn't have that kind of formation, the fucking Unsullied just went down. They went down like paper fucking tigers, man. Like a house of fucking cards from a stiff breeze. Wasn't pretty. Now, what was pretty was their retreat. They retreated in a very orderly, uniform manner. Unfortunately, the last people on the field covering the retreat of those people who were the last to go into Winterfell, they were essentially dead men. They were sacrificing their lives to cover the retreat, and they seem to have made peace with that. And of course, that brings me to my next problem, which was this spiky fucking, Winterfell was surrounded by spikes, okay? But they weren't that tall. So these spikes weren't that tall, and they weren't that well compressed together. There were a lot of empty spaces in between the pikes. Many of the undead were able to squeeze through, okay? And they weren't that high either. And apparently, somehow, for some reason, there were gaps. And this was the next problem. This wall of spikes around Winterfell was apparently caked with pitch or something. But again, you've got all this pitch you're not using that you did use at the start of the battle with those trebuchets and fucking catapults, but apparently it didn't occur to anybody to put these in the fucking castle or to have some of those in the castle and you can fire those over the walls. Or maybe pour it over the fucking walls and then ignite it and burn up hundreds of fucking whites. Anyway, so they were supposed to light it on fire, but the dragons, that's another problem I had. Dany and Jon were supposed to wait for the Night King to make an appearance, but once her Dothraki got wiped out, little Miss Priss decided it was time. It was time to start the battle. Fuck the plan. I'm going to do what I want because, meh, fee-fees. So, because of her feelings, she decided to fuck their plan and, almost cost everybody everything. So when they attacked the whites, who were way, way back behind the battle, that triggered the whites to bring in a storm. Apparently the White Walkers, that is, you got to delineate them between their mindless, automatons that are the undead. They can control storms to a certain extent. So when she decided prematurely to attack, they cloaked the battlefield in a tremendous storm that destroyed almost all visibility. So if we couldn't see shit before, it got even worse. Now you couldn't see anything. Brilliant. These fucking morons who made this episode. Let's make it so the people watching can't see anything. That's great. You can watch an hour and a half and see nothing. Yeah, I can do that without watching this shit. All right, so they fucked that up. So once they brought in the storm, not only could they not see the White Walkers who they were going to blow fire on, who were hiding way back behind their undead, but they also weren't able to effectively target the masses of undead around Winterfell because they tried to attack the White Walkers who now brought in a storm. And I don't know, by the way, if those lesser minions, the ones that were made from Craster's kids, for those of you who don't know, Craster had 99 sons and he was the one that had Craster's Keep and was banging all his fucking daughters. He essentially gave all those sons as tributes to the Night King, who turned them as babies into White Walkers. So they weren't transformed into White Walkers the same way that the Night King was, with a short of dragon glass through the chest. So it's hard to say whether or not fire would have killed them. We'll never know now. Because Dany succumbed to her fee-fees, so it's even less able to be seen now. The battlefield is even more is obscured even more. I mean, there's even less visibility. And so once everybody gets in, they close the gates, and, they send a signal to Danny to light the trench. Well, not trench, to light the barricade, the thorny barricade, which I was talking about, which was crappy. But because of the storm that Danny brought in because she decided to attack prematurely because her Dothraki got wiped out, the dragons couldn't see Davos on the walls waving the fucking torches as the signal to light the trench on fire. I don't know. It was a trench with stakes in it. Yeah. So anyway, then the red woman goes out and mutters some fucking spells, lights it on fire. And this was my next gripe, okay? There was nobody on the walls. We've got a castle here. It's more than a castle. It's a huge fucking fortress. It is the home of the Lords and Warden of the North. Huge, very well-defended castle. High walls, lots of buildings. And everybody had just retreated into the castle. What didn't they do? They didn't go up on the walls. So, you've got the burning fucking circle. The barricade itself was on fire. And this was another problem I had with the entire defense. When you are defending, when you're fighting a defensive battle, you need to have multiple layers of defense and multiple layers of the same type of defense to fall back on, okay? There should have been no less than 2 wall stakes around Winterfell. Not 1, 2, 3 would have been ideal. That the undead would have had to fight their way through, and as they fought their way through, ever more of them would have caught on fire, burned, spread that fire to the man behind him, beside him, and so on and so forth. And they didn't do that. They didn't have multiple layers of defense, okay? And that was a problem. And they had people outside the wall. For those of you who don't know anything about siege warfare, your best bet in a defensive battle, if you have a position that you can defend, that is designed for defense, that is designed for fighting a force that has overwhelming numbers that are far superior to your own, your best bet is to use that defensive place, okay? And they had a fucking castle with high walls and shit. What are they doing? They're outside with fucking pikes and shit. What the fuck? They're outside charging with fucking horses in the dark, and they can't see shit. What are you, retarded? How many? I mean, it's 40,000 Dothraki. What were there? Another 100,000, 150,000 people? Every one of those motherfuckers that could fit on those walls, they should have been squeezed onto those motherfucking walls. They should have used fucking Crisco to squeeze even more people up there if they fucking could. Lord, whatever they use for fucking greasing shit up. They should have greased people to get them up on that fucking wall, and they all should have had bows and arrows. You don't have to be good with a bow and arrow. Remember the episode, what you could see of it, the undead were literally just squeezed together. You could be a blind fucking archer and all you have to do is listen. Oh, shoot the arrow toward that sound. You'll hit and kill a white. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Why are you even outside the fucking wall? Idiots. Why are you exposing yourself like that? It makes no sense. In a siege situation, depending on the quality of your defensive measures, you can fight off 10 or more times your number. Okay? Sometimes up to 20 times. It depends on how good your defenses are. But from what I saw of Winterfell, they should have been able to fight off, at minimum, 10 times their fucking number. And the Night King had a lot of enemies. I mean, he had a lot of fucking soldiers, but he didn't have 10 times their number. Oh, the safest place is in the castle? The best place to fight from is in the castle? Let's go outside. What the fuck? It's so stupid. But, so they lit the fucking wooden stakes that surrounded the entire castle on fire. And what did they do? They didn't do anything. So the dead are all standing there, squeezed together, like sardines in a fucking can, without an inch of daylight between any of them, without a millimeter of daylight. And what are they doing in the castle? They're doing nothing. There's nobody on the fucking wall. Nobody. You should have been shooting arrows like a motherfucker. Like a machine gun volley. You don't even need to aim. That's the beautiful thing. And they're undead, their flesh is desiccated, their muscle is wasted away. There's not much there. Your arrows could go through 2 or 3 of them before they stop. Why aren't you shooting at them? Nobody was shooting anything. And then the Night King decides, yeah, all right, I'm going to use my brain. And then some of the fucking undead start walking forward and laying down on this barricade. It hasn't been burning for that long, so all the stakes are still intact. So this was my next problem. What the fuck? How are they walking forward and laying down when there's supposed to be a wall of spikes there? So apparently, we're just supposed to, suspend reality, right? We're just supposed to suspend what we've already seen, right? And accept that the people that built this spiky wall going around the entire fucking fortress, they left some big gaps. They left some big gaps. This wall hadn't been burning for about a couple minutes, right? And all these spikes were trees. These were not little fucking branches that would burn away in a minute or 2 of intense flame. They were like big fucking tree trunks with points on them and spikes of fucking dragon glass stuck into the wood of these fucking big tree trunk pieces, right? And sealed in place with pitch, which for some reason they didn't seem to have during the battle to use as a weapon. But they got plenty of pitch to make fucking spikes of dragon glass stick into these pieces of wood that are this thick that they used as part of the fucking wall that they eventually lit on fire. But they left big gaps! And I'm like, what the fuck? Where does big gaps come from? And all around the fucking wall, these undead start laying down. Laying down how? It's supposed to be a spiky big fucking wall. What are they laying on? They were laying flat down on the ground. There were these huge... Suddenly, somehow, these huge door-sized gaps appeared in this spiky wall around the fortress, and all that was there was fire burning from nothing there. And so the dead just started laying down on the fire. And, once they had put the fire out, because, fire just need oxygen, then the undead behind them started walking over the bodies of the undead that had laid down on the now non-existent barrier that conveniently had door-sized gaps left in it. And they started walking across and streaming toward the fucking wall, which for some reason had no spikes at the base of it, nothing to impede climbing. That's brilliant. What? And this whole time nobody's firing any arrows. And then they start yelling, "Man the walls! Man the walls!" What? Why weren't the walls manned already? This is like Medieval Warfare 101, okay? Archers on the fucking wall. And then, when people do get on the wall, you just see like an occasional arrow shooting out. You got like 50, 60,000 people still in there. Give them each a bow and put them on the fucking wall. You should have seen arrows raining down so thick, like in that fucking movie, 300, Fight in the Shade, where the fucking Persians were shooting so many arrows that blocked out the sun. That should have been the fucking image you saw. Try 30, 40,000 people firing arrows at once. No, they're just a few random people up on the fucking wall. And 10, they got rid of those few random people and put a bunch of dudes up there with melee weapons. Okay, all right, archers, get off the wall. We're going to man it with swordsmen. What? Where's the burning pitch? Why aren't you dropping big fucking rocks and shit on these undead who are clambering over each other and creating their own wall out of their own dead bodies, and then they're all climbing over the guy in front of them to eventually get to the top of the fucking wall? Oh, let's let them do that. Let's get rid of the archers, as few as there were. Why there weren't more bows and arrows, I don't know. I saw shit tons of bows and shit tons of arrows being made in the prior episodes where they were preparing, but apparently those just went, into the ether and disappeared. Hey, let's get rid of the people that can stop the fucking undead from getting to the wall in the first place. No, let's put a bunch of people who are using weapons that can only kill somebody 3 feet away. Yeah. We're guaranteeing we need the undead to pretty much get over the wall with these guys manning it before they can be engaged. Okay, we want the undead to get in so we can whack them with an axe. Now, we don't want to use bows and arrows and crossbows and shit and pitch and rocks. It made no sense. So the tactics were retarded. Totally fucking retarded. Meanwhile, the whole time the undead are out there, blocked behind that fucking barricade of fire, before those convenient fucking plot holes in the fucking barrier appeared that the undead could then lay down on the non-existent barrier that just appeared, the non-existent barrier that just appeared out of nowhere, the non-existence, which was formerly a barrier. They laid down in the fucking fire. Before that, they were all just standing around out there doing nothing, and nobody was shooting anything. Boy, those trebuchets and catapults would have come in real handy about then, huh? I don't get it, man. I don't get it. And inside the castle, they didn't have any real defensive measurements set up. They had like one fucking defensive wall of spikes set up in the courtyard inside the castle, but that was it. And they were like totally unprepared for this, it seemed. What happened to all those weeks of preparation? No weeks of preparation. We don't need to be prepared. We don't know anything about warfare. It's just retarded. It was so fucking retarded. So the tactics were ridiculous. They made no sense whatsoever. This whole battle was done wrong. Absolutely, positively wrong. Those 40,000 Dothraki, that was a waste. You could have beat the Night King just with archers, okay? You could have had archers in the courtyard, and you're saying, well, we couldn't fit everybody. If they had that 40,000 Dothraki, they couldn't have fit them on the wall. No, they could have put them in the courtyard. Okay, Dothraki, shoot over the wall in that direction, and you'll hit something. Okay. We've got 12 million arrows we made. So here's 100 each for you, motherfuckers. And we'll give another 100 to every motherfucker in here and give them a bow, and everybody will start shooting with arrows tipped with dragonglass. 10 minutes later, all the fucking undead are dead. And they've all been pierced with dragonglass, so now the Night King, if he strolls up to the fucking castle, he's got nothing to raise. He cannot bring back those dead that were killed with dragonglass, okay? He would only be able to raise those forces within the castle who were dumb enough to go outside and fight and get killed. He could only raise them. But if there's nobody to raise, or very few, he's lost. But no! We've got to create tension and drama. Fuck good tactics. So stupid. I'm sorry. I'm something of a student of warfare, so this shit really pisses me off. All right, so moving past the tactics. So, okay, as you can guess, the undead got over the wall, swarmed into the fucking place, and just started killing people willy-nilly. Nobody seemed to have a bow and arrow. Nobody seemed to have any weapons, apparently. Nobody seemed to be prepared for this fucking attack. There were no formations set up. There were no tiers by one. Basically, a multi-tiered defense of archers would be 3 to 4 deep, okay? You would have one set of archers in the front, kneeling, and 3 behind. They would shoot, all right? They would shoot and they would kneel, and the person behind them would shoot and kneel and reload their bow, and the person behind them would shoot and then kneel and reload, and then shoot, kneel, reload. 3 to 4 man-deep tiered defense of archers would mean that you had a consistent rain of arrows going out at your enemy. Nothing. Nah, none of that. Just people are running around randomly like chickens with their fucking heads cut off. No pikemen in any way, shape, or form with the same kind of tiered defense that I was talking about before, which would be much more effective with these undead coming over the wall because they don't have this huge power of the swarm behind them. So that would work much better. No defense. No, we're not going to have that kind of well-disciplined, well-set-up defense. No need. Oh, boy. Okay, so, predictably, everybody gets slaughtered just about. Only the best fighters, the most elite fighters are left at the end. And eventually, the Night King's army does get decimated and wiped out because despite there being many times more of them than the defenders, they're shit fighters. They can't fight for shit. The only thing they had were their numbers, and that was eventually matched and about evened out with the skill of the defenders. So in the end, you didn't have very many defenders left, but all the Night King's forces were dead. Meanwhile, you had some weird fucking aerial battle going on. Instead of Jon or Dany attacking the Night King attacked them, and there was some scene where the fucking dragons, the Night King's undead dragon and fucking Rhaegar, was it? Jon's dragon were fighting. I don't know if Rhaegar died, by the way. But I know the undead dragon fucking scraped the shit out of his stomach. I don't know how that works. I thought that the stomachs were the strongest part of the dragon. Remember the last season where Drogon, with Dany in the back, attacked the caravan of Lannister soldiers that were going toward King's Landing? And they shot all these arrows and they just bounced off his underside. So, and we don't know if he died. I don't know. It's too dark. You couldn't see anything. So they fought. Danny, she ended up somewhere else, shooting random fire onto some undead around the walls. It was very disjointed, the battle. It was very disjointed, hard to keep track of who, what, where, when. And again, the visibility was terrible. So, the Night King's dragon and John's dragon fought in the air. And his dragon got fucked up, landed on the ground. Meanwhile, Danny's dragon then attacked the Night King's dragon after that. And then the Night King got knocked off his undead dragon, and his undead dragon flew off somewhere else to appear later. And then he's on the ground, right? And this is like the big moment, right? And Danny sees him, the mist clears from the storm, and then she says, Dracarys! yeah. And what happens? Well, he doesn't get burnt. Man made of ice. Fire has no effect on him, apparently. Okay. So Iceman, who's immune to fucking fire, just smiled. I didn't actually like that. I thought that was really strange. The Night King had essentially been emotionless up until this point. And then when she breathed fire on him, he was like a horrible Joker smile. It was really bad, man. It was almost cringy. And then he picked up one of his ice spears that he killed Viserion, was it, with in the prior season. The dragon that he was riding around that he managed to pull out of that lake with chains that would require fire to make. Where'd he get all those fucking chains? And undead that could swim and undead can't swim. How the hell did that work? How did he get that dragon? Can somebody tell me how he got that fucking dragon out of that fucking lake? Remember, he threw that fucking javelin with very poor form, I might add. And he killed that fucking dragon, and then it crashed into the lake, sunk to the bottom. Whites can't swim. I mean, did he go in himself? Wouldn't he have had to go in himself? But wouldn't he have sunk like a fucking stone? I guess he's so fucking strong he could just, just through sheer brute force work his way back out. But where'd he get the chains that were wrapped around the... I don't know. Isn't he surrounded by an aura of cold? Wouldn't his presence in the water just have fucking frozen the whole lake and he'd been locked in it, unable to move? I don't know how that works. But where'd the chains come from? They can't make fire. I don't get it. They made no sense. But anyway, that's another video. So, he got surrounded by dragon fire but survived. Then he took one of those javelins, and somehow the ice that makes the javelin was also intact. Now, I know he's immune to fire. How did his javelin survive? What the fuck? I guess we're supposed to just, dismiss that little hiccup. Oh, the same magic that animates him, he also imbued that into the javelin. Okay. So he throws it and misses, but it makes Danny, in fear, fly off away from him. And then he just starts calmly walking toward Winterfell. Didn't it ever occur to him that somebody could just have, maybe somebody out there has some Valerian-tipped arrows? Maybe they could shoot him? That's another thing. I wondered about that. Was he immune to dragon glass? And how did they know that Valerian steel would kill him? I mean, he's a different creature entirely from his creations that he made from Craster's children. Craster's children were made in a very different way, and because Sam killed one with dragon glass, we could pretty much assume, we don't really even need to assume, we have firsthand evidence that dragon glass kills what I would call the lesser White Walkers, those made by the hand of the Night King, but the Night King was created with dragon glass, so would dragon glass kill him? I don't know. We know Valerian steel would, but how do we know Valerian steel would work? Again, yes, we saw Valerian steel, i.e. Jon's Longclaw, kill one at the Battle of Hardhome, but they're different than the Night King. So how did Arya know it would kill him? Nope, nobody knows. It's not explained how any of them knew that dragon, that fucking Valerian steel fucking dagger would work, let alone dragon glass. But anyway, I mean, maybe dragon glass wouldn't work on him, which is why he's so confidently walked toward that fortress, although I don't know how he would know that there was no more Valerian steel in the world. Apparently for 8,000 years he's been hanging out in the fucking lands of winter. He wouldn't know what's going on in the world. Maybe they could have tens of thousands of fucking Valerian steel-tipped arrows. It only takes one motherfucker in a tree to snipe his ass with a Valerian steel arrow. But apparently, somehow this motherfucker knew that they didn't have that much Valerian steel. So he's walking toward the fucking castle after Dany's failed attempt to kill him with dragon glass, after she knocked him off his dragon, and then his dragon flew away to parts unknown. And he starts walking toward the fucking casual, leisurely pace. I don't need to run. Yeah, it's a war, but fuck that. I'm invulnerable. And Jon, who was close by, starts running after him. Of course, the Night King's aware and turns around and sees Jon. And what does Jon do? Jon stops, like the genius he is. He stops. Oh, he's seen me. I better stop chasing him. So that, of course, gives the Night King time to raise up every motherfucker that died. He can't raise up the forces that he had brought with him because they've been killed with dragonglass, okay? But he can animate every motherfucker that died in the battle, which is like tens of thousands of them. And they all stood up. And because dummy Jon stopped before he was able to get to the Night King, when he knows I'm coming for him, I better stop. You're going to have to fight him anyway, Pinhead. So he saw you. What are you slowing down for? He slows down. He stops. So stupid. And it's clearly just to give the Night King time to put an impediment between him and the Night King so as to create an excuse, to create a reason for why Jon couldn't get to him, so that it's not Jon that kills him. Yeah, it can't be Jon. We can't have the man. That's another thing that annoyed me about this whole fucking episode. All these strong women and shit. All the men are dying and doing all the heavy fucking lifting and dying. Were there any women that were fighting in the battle died? No. Everybody that died was a man. Did you notice that? I'll get back to that later. But no, we can't have Jon be the hero. Jon has a penis. So let's just usurp expectations. Yeah, we've been building this for fucking 8 years. He's going to be the hero. He's the fucking prince that was promised. It turns out the prince that was promised was bullshit. But I'll get to that. So Jon can't get to the Night King, right? So instead, he just starts slaying whites. And he's become this master slayer now. There's 100 of them around him. He's fucking whacking them left and right. And somehow he manages to survive. Okay, that's right. Then Dany comes along. This is so retarded. So he's killing him for a bit. And then when he's about to get overwhelmed, Dany comes along with Drogon and blows the fire, kills a bunch of them. And then she lands the dragon. And he yells at her, Bran. He's got to go help Bran. And then she tells him to go. And then when Jon goes, these are all plot devices designed to create a specific outcome to the situation that normally would not have happened because people wouldn't be this stupid. So after Jon goes away and she saves Jon, she sits there on the ground. He's raised 100,000 new whites, but she's just sitting there. Like she's doing her fucking nails. Oh, there's some undead around me. There's about 100,000 new undead. Well, maybe I should fly away. No, she didn't do that. And of course, what happens? Thousands of undead swarm her dragon and climb onto it and start stabbing the fucking thing. She's brilliant! And so eventually the dragon panics because, this is panic-worthy. He's covered with hundreds of fucking undead creatures stabbing the shit out of him. So he does some shaking. Dany falls off. He flies into the air. I don't know how with all that weight on him. He's got literally hundreds of bodies attached to him with weapons. I would think he'd be too heavy at that point to fly off. But hey, physics be damned. Oh, they're magical creatures. Oh. Yeah, okay. And then she falls off onto the ground and she's going to get killed. But then Ser Jorah appears. Woo! And defends her. Okay? Yeah. And then fast forward to, I forgot about Arya. Oh my God. It just gets better and better. Now, I'm not going to call Arya a Mary Sue per se, but she kind of is. So the moment that the battle comes to the top of the wall and everybody's having to fight with their swords and axes because, these dummies can't plan a battle. Let's let the fucking undead get on the wall so we can whack them with axes. We don't want to keep them outside with fire and pitch and rocks and arrows and bolts from crossbows. Oh no! So once they get on the walls, Arya just appears out of nowhere with that fucking spear of hers, which somehow has some magical cutting capability, even though it's a quad-sided spear. Not tri, but quad, meaning it's got thicker ridges on the right, and then the edge as well. So, yeah, I don't know how it was cutting that well. There'd be a lot of resistance with that, third and fourth side. So it was like kind of a cross. the spear, like that, and then the point at the top, for strength, but it wouldn't cut for shit. But somehow she's chopping heads off. And I don't know how she would get edge alignment either, because the grip of the staff that the spearheads was attached to was round. So how's she lining up the edge correctly? You need an oval-shaped, very oval-shaped. In fact, almost flat, with flat sides and a rounded, rounded here, and this is flat, and then that aligns with the edge so that you can cut effectively. And, you can get edge alignment with what you're striking. But the grip of the fucking spear was round, so how's she lining up the edge to cut so effectively? I don't know. But anyway, she's chopping heads off with that spear, and she's zipping around, killing everything. She's a master slayer. How did that happen? Somebody explain that to me. This is another problem I had with this show, okay? Suddenly, Arya becomes ninja master, samurai master, master of everything. She's the fucking deadliest woman on earth. Supposed to be an assassin. I didn't realize assassins are great warriors, but okay. The faceless men would have to be trained in all areas and aspects of combat in case they get into a really nasty, deadly situation where they're exposed or where they have to fight to be able to kill their mark. All right, I can accept that, but what training did she get? What was her training exactly? Okay, she learned to fight blind, and she beat the waif blind, and then that whole fucking training at the faceless men's temple. Don't get me started on that. That was so retarded. Okay? She manages to beat the waif blind, and then when she gets her eyes back, she's getting her ass kicked by the waif again. Ooh, okay. That makes no sense at all. All right, so then all her training was getting beat up by the fucking waif, who she managed to kill because of darkness. Yeah, okay. I really didn't get that. Her training was minimal, and she didn't get anywhere near completing it, so I don't know how she became such a deadly fighter. But okay, I'll suspend what I know about the show's reality and just accept that she's like this fucking master death ninja that's more deadly than any other creature on Earth by the age of fucking 18, even though she got minimal fucking training. So she's whipping around, but then she gets her head knocked, and apparently that depowers her. Because now Game of Thrones is like a video game. And you get hit, and your power bar goes way down. Apparently. It's so stupid. That was so stupid. She went from being indestructible to like, an infant. You could just smack and they're dead. Okay. It made no sense at all. And then she had to be saved by Beric Dondarrion and the Hound. And it turned out that this is so silly. Beric Dondarrion's entire existence was to block a few undead and save Arya. Yeah. So the Lord of Light brought him back, just to act as a barricade. Ooh, brilliant! Brilliant play on words. His name had something to do with his eventual purpose in life, which was all to save Arya, who was the ultimate weapon and would be able to kill the Night King. Oh, I should have said spoilers before this video started. Okay, so yeah, his purpose is served. He was brought back fucking 7 times just to save Arya. Okay? And so he saves her, gets killed. The Hound saves her also. And they end up barricading themselves in a room with Beric Dondarrion, who was able to stumble in before he died. And then they barricade the door. And there's the Red Lady, Melisandre, in the room. Ooh, imagine that. She's popped up at the last minute. And now she's popped up again. And then Arya's like, oh, I know you. And the Red Lady's like, I know you too. And then Arya's like, she says, you told me I would snuff out many eyes. And you told me that we would meet again, and you were right on both counts. Yeah, that's right. I told you would snuff out brown eyes, and green eyes, and blue eyes. Ooh. Great foreshadowing there. Yeah, wonderful. So, kind of telling everybody, yeah, she's going to be the one to kill the Night King. Oh. And then when Arya heard that, and the undead started pounding on the door again, then she says to Arya, what do we tell the god of death? And then Arya says, not today. That was what Syrio Forel used to say to her when they would spar when she was much younger. And then she runs off, and we see nothing of her again. And then shoot forward, and then you've got the scenes with Jon and fucking Dany fighting the Night King, and the Night King falls. They can't burn him, and Jon the idiot stops and lets the Night King get away. All right, so meanwhile, in the fucking grove with the weirwood tree is Bran, who was useless. What is his power? He's just a memory? He's the world's memory. Everyone that's ever lived and everything that's ever happened, he can remember it all. Great. How helpful was he during this battle? He didn't do anything. He fucking warged into some fucking birds to see where the Night King was. And what did he do with that information? Nothing. He served zero purpose. The whole fucking show, his eyeballs were white and he was somewhere else. He served no purpose. Meanwhile, Theon Greyjoy and that useless, what was it, House Umber? I don't remember who the girl was. One of the, youngest members of one of them fucking junior houses that took over after the Battle of the Bastards. And Jon showed mercy and let her continue to be the lady of that house and didn't punish her for the sins of her elders. And she was there and, we need some girl power. As if there wasn't enough in this fucking show already. Brienne. Don't get me started on Brienne. Every fucking scene, that bitch is being covered in undead bodies stabbing at her and scratching at her. But apparently her armor is impenetrable to damage. Meanwhile, Ser Jorah's getting stabbed with fucking swords through plate armor. Oh, don't get me started. But anyway, we'll get to that. So, they're there with arrows. There's like 20 of them. And they're getting overwhelmed by hundreds of whites. Somehow, 20 guys are able to, with bows and arrows, with no barricades to slow down the undead, able to just pew, shoot out arrows and kill all the undead that had came for Bran. And eventually, the only person left standing is Theon. And then he picks up a spear that's kind of like a spear glaive. So it's not just a regular spear, it's a one-edged, kind of curved, right, so it has an edge on it as well as a point, and he's swinging away, kind of like it was a halberd, and he's just slaying undead. And this is actually possible. It's a very good weapon. He's got a lot of reach, 7-8 feet long. He's got much more reach than if he had a fucking sword. So if they're coming at him sporadically and without any real planning, like swarming him in one large group, it's possible he could have fought him off. In a realistic situation, if they were living things, because, undead things don't exist. But regardless, so he fights off a shitload of them and defends Bran until the very end. And that's great, so he redeems himself. And then Bran suddenly comes back and, wherever he was warged, who knows what he was doing. Maybe he was in a fucking squirrel jerking off 2 miles away. I don't know. But whatever the fuck he was doing, whatever he was warged into, he wasn't there doing anything productive. So he wargs back into his body, and he says to Theon, "You're a good man, Theon. Thank you." Essentially, I guess he's been keeping track of what's going on. And he knows that Arya is close. But it's still not time yet, right? Now, of course, I don't understand why fucking Theon didn't just stand there and wait. Because they're really just doing this to buy time, fighting the undead. By the way, this whole battle, the whole premise of the battle was that they couldn't win, which is not true. I told you at the beginning all the different tactics, and there were other things they could have done, which would have made it not that difficult to win, actually. Or difficult, but certainly not impossible. If they had employed the right tactics, they actually wouldn't have suffered that many losses, but unfortunately... Oh, there's another thing! While this was all going on, the undead up there... the ferocity of their attack on the keep. Now, of course, I should have gotten that before. That was earlier in the battle, before everything had been wiped out, because the sides were kind of evenly matched, the undead's numbers with the skill of the defenders. But before everybody got wiped out, this big fucking giant, undead giant, bashed through the gates of Winterfell. And there's little Lady Mormont. This is another problem. Okay, so... if you're in a siege situation, what's the weakest point? The gate. Well, guess what was barricaded in front of the gate to slow down or stop or impede any type of breaching of that gate? Nothing. I gotta tell you, whoever planned this fucking battle, they had some of the lowest fucking IQs I ever seen. There was nothing there. No trench, no stakes, no spikes. No barricades of any fucking kind. No defensive formations whose sole purpose is to stay there and guard that fucking gate. And meanwhile, while they're there, they could have used their bows and arrows and shit to fire at other areas inside the keep. But they would have held their position. And that would have been their dedicated position. Nothing! So the undead dude, he just breaks in the gate, just like Wan did in the prior season in the Battle of the Bastards. Very easily kicks it in, strolls in, whacks Lady Mormont, this little 11-year-old kid, and she goes flying. That was hilarious. I always hated that little fucking kid. I know she was just put in there to be this strong little independent wayman. Waymen can be strong even when they're 80 pounds soaking wet. I don't even think she was 80 pounds soaking wet. Maybe 65 pounds. And she was arguing with Jorah in the prior episode. I'm going to fight. I'll beat them all. So he whacks her and she goes flying. That should have killed her, by the way. But apparently, she's got plot armor as well. At least until she gets to the point where she's supposed to have the nice little setup that makes her look like the strong, independent wayman. So, for some reason, this fucking giant that had a big fucking club. See, this is another thing. This is another problem I had. That Wan in season fucking, what was it, 6 or 7? I forget. I forget which season. I think it was 6. The Battle of the Bastards. This big fucking guy didn't have a club. That was another plot device so that he couldn't break through the offensive formation that they had set up of shields and spears around the wildlings. You know, because if he had a club, he'd just few swipes and all those shields and all those men would be gone, and there'd be a nice big opening for the wildlings to get away. But they had a club, and he's swatting people away. But for some reason, he decides to grab little Lyanna Mormont. I'm swatting everybody with my big fucking club, but I'm going to take her and pick her up and squish her with my fucking hands. Like I have some kind of intelligence in my head with my rotting brain, which isn't working. And I just want to enjoy squishing her. Made no sense. And it looked like he was going to eat her. And he got her close enough to her face, and then she screams and sticks her axe, which conveniently is an axe with a point, into his eye, and then it dies. So this little 65-pound girl killed a big fucking giant. I figured at the very least she would kill 20 walkers, but no, she went beyond that, killed a big fucking giant before she died. It's so stupid. More of this feminism nonsense. Oh, boy. But anyway... So, that was another point in the show that was just retarded, right? And so, we've got all this shit going on, and then the Night King, he raises up everybody that died, and then they start attacking the keep and stream in through that nice open gate that had no impediments, thanks to the retarded defenders. And so, everybody's fighting for their lives, and Jon finally gets in, and then here comes Undead Dragon Viserion into the keep. Now, Viserion and Rhaegar had fought before, and that's what got Jon knocked off his fucking dragon and put him close to the Night King, who he then charged, but again, for some reason stopped and let the Night King raise everybody. And so he gets in there, and then, he has to hide from Viserion, who's blowing fire at everything. But his fire isn't as powerful because his neck got chewed open by Rhaegar, Jon's dragon. So his fire was spitting out the side of his throat as well. So it didn't have as much of impact capability. It didn't have as much power. But, of course, it was still powerful enough to kill. By the way, what was this fire? Was it just ice fire? I've never heard of that. Did it burn? Did it freeze? We don't know. But it had some kind of ability to create impact damage. We saw that. Anyway, so Jon he's tied down because of that fucking dragon. And he can't get to Bran. Can't have Jon. We can't have a man be the hero. Have you noticed this? Has anybody noticed this trend recently that men are not allowed to be heroes anymore? It's got to be the Wayman. It's got to be set up in such a way that the man can't be the hero. He can't be. And of course, the other thing, I would have rather seen him fight. We had fucking 8 seasons of build-up. Well, 7, right? And the last season was incomplete. Short little fucking season. They had so much work to do, and they still couldn't get this shit right. We've had all this build-up. It would have been much better to have that build-up result in the expected outcome. But for some reason, in Last Jedi fashion, with the lightsaber through Snoke that he conveniently set beside him, turned on by, emo boy, Same kind of fucking usurped expectations deal. Nah, we'll have it be Arya. Won't that be great? So he's tied down. And meanwhile, Dany is outside, outside the castle where she fell from her dragon. Because, she was sitting there on the ground fucking doing her nails and giving herself a fucking pedicure while surrounded by an army of undead. And Jorah is getting sliced up and stabbed. I don't know how. This is another thing I don't understand about this show. So this show makes no sense. There's plot armor when you don't want somebody to die. But otherwise, armor's useless. Does anybody realize that he was wearing plate armor? You cannot stab through plate armor. I don't care if you're a white and if you're supposedly stronger than a normal human. These fucking things were using rotted, fucking rusted piece of shit weapons. They don't care. They're undead. They'll just use their fucking claw skeletal hands. But they were using shitty weapons and they're stabbing through plate armor. What the fuck? There's no seams on the side of this shit, okay? It's not chainmail either. Where you can split the links, okay? If you have a strong enough stabbing weapon and a sharp enough, small enough point. It's plate! But he's getting stabbed left and right by whites coming at him, and he's swinging that gigantic fucking sword. Don't get me started on that. Now, of course, granted, Valyrian steel is supposed to be lighter and stronger than normal steel, but Sam said it himself, it was extremely heavy. Now, granted, Sam is a big fat pant load. He'd be lucky to be able to swing a fucking butter knife. And that's the most he wants to do either, so he can feed his fat face. But it was a big fucking greatsword. I don't care how good the balance. Okay, granted, some of these greatswords can have excellent balance. But he was using it one-handed at some points. I don't know. Especially after getting stabbed so many times. It seems unlikely. And again, but my biggest problem was he's wearing plate. How's he getting stabbed all over the fucking torso? It made no sense at all. It's just like that Tower of Joy battle where that fucking guy got stabbed by one of the two knights defending the Tower of Joy where Ned Stark's sister was inside. The guy was wearing plate armor, just stabbed right through. You can't do that. Like the people watching are morons and don't know anything about armor. Anyway, so Dany's outside fighting, being defended by Jorah. That simp, that wimp, that blue pill cuck boy who essentially is going to, fawn after her and die for her. And she won't bang him. She won't even give him, a conciliatory blowjob. Nothing. Oh, he's willing to fight and die for me. The least you could do is bang him once, honey. But no. Granted, he is quite old, but guy was awful loyal and willing to die, essentially for somebody who I wasn't very well impressed with. I don't see, what the big deal is about Dany. I never saw the big deal. I don't think she's a very good leader. I don't think she's very intelligent. She makes a lot of dumb, impulsive decisions. I think the only reason anybody follows her is because she's immune to fire, and they think she's some kind of prophet or chosen by God. That's the only reason the Dothraki followed her. I burned down that house where all the Khaleesi's lived, and I survived the flames, and I'm standing there surrounded by fire. Ooh, look at my titties. Follow me. That's all. She's immune to fire and she's good looking. That's it. She's not even that good looking. She's kind of hippie and chunky, if you ask me. But she has no special skills. There's really nothing unique about her, if you ask me. But, she's one of the most overrated characters in the fucking show. Jon is a much better leader, much better choice, although he's made some dumb decisions himself. The defense of that fucking castle, the defense of Winterfell, being one of them. Anyway, so you've got Dany and Jorah outside the walls. You've got Brienne and Podrick and Jaime backs up against the wall, slaying whites that are clamoring over each other to kill them. That I could believe that they survived that long in that position. They're not surrounded. Nobody's at their back. They've just got whites coming at them. Their skill alone can keep them alive. And yeah, he's got one hand, but he's been a fighter for 30 years. He was one of the best swordsmen in the world. And even though he only has one hand, he's still got decades of experience and skill, and he has worked very hard drilling with that sword. And the truth of the matter is, the thing that'll get you through a battle, more often than not, is not skill. Well, you'll have to have a certain level of skill, of course, but oftentimes there's a little luck involved and not being afraid. Oftentimes it's the fear that kills you. You hesitate. when you shouldn't, and then you die. So he's got a lot of experience, and that experience got him through, okay? He would have been able to keep himself together, keep calm, stay in the moment, be able to do what needed to be done to survive, be able to maintain his focus so he doesn't get killed. Same with Brienne. She was trained very, very well, though, you know, it seemed like she was getting overwhelmed and screaming, "Ah! Ah!" Did you notice that? Sorry. Bad allergies. Did you notice all the fucking screaming? That really was annoying the shit out of me. Same with Arya. Remember I talked about she got depowered? Yeah, like a fucking character in a video game. And her power bar went for a while. So dumb. They talked about that. The show producers talked about how they wanted to make her revert back to her child self for a while to show the contrast and blah, 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 blah. You're idiots. You're fucking morons that produced this thing. Anyway, so Jon is pinned down in the ruins of the castle where the few last survivors, who were probably the best of the fighters, and Sam, who survived only because of plot armor. He didn't survive because he was a good fighter. Okay? That fat, sad sack, he couldn't fight his way out of a paper fucking bag, okay? He survived clearly as a convenience. Nothing more, just plot armor, all right? If this was old school Game of Thrones, he'd be dead. Uh-huh. But once they diverted from the books and the brilliance of George R.R. Martin, that's it. You got to rely on morons now, apparently. And they've never studied any military history or tactics of any kind. Pinheads. All right, so you know where everybody is. Jon in the castle, pinned down by Viserion, who's taking a liking to him for some reason, and has him pinned down with fire and is keeping him there. He's not going to move on to anything else, so Jon can't get the Bran. He can't be the hero. You man, you've been hogging the spotlight and put yourself in positions where you can be the hero. God damn you for storming the beaches in Normandy. We Waymen should have been able to do that. Oh, but we don't want to put ourselves at any risk. You do the heavy lifting. We'll come in and claim the glory after. So he's pinned down. Dany's outside the walls. Jorah's getting sliced to bits, even though he's wearing plate armor, and you know. And back to the Grove, where Theon is killed. All. Whoops. Theon has killed all the whites with this glaive spear he's using, and then it's silence. All right. And then Bran tells him, yeah, good man, thank you. And before this happens, in comes the Night King with his generals, right? Because he's convinced now that pretty much all opposition has been beaten, and now it's safe for him to go in there and expose himself and kill Bran. Yeah. By the way, they didn't explain, in my opinion, they didn't explain enough. They didn't explain at all why it has to be the Night King. I mean, the Grove was being attacked. This is the interesting thing. The Grove was being attacked by hundreds and hundreds of undead. And yet, Bran says, the Night King's going to come for me. He's going to be the one to kill me. If the Night King wants to be the one to slay you, I guess he wanted to wipe out all opposition. But then how would he know? Is he able to see through the eyes of his undead servants? This isn't explained enough. How would he know that all the defenders, except for Theon, were dead? It was quite clear he wanted to wait until most, if not all, of the defenders were dead. And he didn't show up at the Grove until everyone but Theon was dead. How would he know? How would he know? How would he know that it's, in his mind, safe to expose himself? That he only has to deal with one lone dude that he knows he can kill. They don't explain it. Nobody tells you. Is he a green seer like Bran? And even though he's not at the same level, can he see things in the present the way Bran does? They don't tell you. None of this is explained. A lot of stuff wasn't explained. What happened to the prince that was promised? Or princess? That was Arya? Or that was bullshit? There was no prince or princess that was promised? So, you know, in strolls the Night King with a bunch of his generals, you know, some of Craster's kids that had been changed, transformed into whites. And with him comes some more undead, raised from the ranks of everybody that died at Winterfell. So the entire Grove is surrounded by undead. And at the entry, facing Theon and Bran at the tree, is the Night King and his White Walker generals. Okay. So then Bran tells him, you're a good man, thank you, and then Theon, for reasons unknown, decides to charge the Night King. I don't know why. I mean, was this what Bran wanted him to do? Bran could supposedly see the future, so he knew this was what needed to happen to do what? Distract the Night King, make the Night King think that all resistance had actually been squashed by having Theon make this desperate move of attacking him and then being killed, thereby distracting the Night King and making him convince himself and being convinced that he'd won. Okay. Maybe he felt it was necessary. Maybe he'd seen the future and knew it was necessary for the Night King to be standing beside him, Bran, when Arya attacked him. I don't know, but it seemed kind of needless to me. Of course, they didn't explain to you why it was necessary for Theon to essentially kill himself, but he charged at the Night King, and of course the Night King, being super strong and super fast and seeing this very obvious attack coming, redirected it, broke off the tip of the spear and impaled Theon with what didn't look like the point of the spear, but looked like the center half of the wood that had been shattered. Now, last I checked, you can't pierce plate armor, which is what Theon was wearing, with wood. You're the strongest motherfucker on earth. What's going to happen is the wood is going to break before the fucking steel breaks. But apparently, somehow, physical laws cease to exist in this world when you want to accomplish something. I want to push a piece of wood through plate armor. Yeah, you can't even get a sword through that, okay? So the wood isn't strong enough, and it'll buckle and break. The fibers will separate, and it won't work. But apparently, neither will stone. Dragon glass, obsidian, it's a form of glass. It's just rock, and it's not that fragile, but it was shattered. I don't know how the fucking Night King, I don't care how strong that motherfucker is, he pushed a piece of wood or a piece of dragon glass through steel. That's impossible. Oh, but it's just a movie. Yeah. Okay, so kills Theon. Theon drops. We see cutscenes to Jorah getting stabbed some more through his plate armor. And Jon being pinned down. So Jon can't do anything, and you get the music. I'll have to say, the music was excellent. Whoever wrote the score for this episode did a great fucking job. The music was wonderful. They built tension very well. So my hat's off to whoever it was that wrote the score, did the music for this episode. Brilliant. Excellent music. So, Theon's dead. Night King looks down at him. Okay, you're dead, bitch. I can kill this boy now. It's gotta be me! I have to expose myself. I'm the key to winning this whole fucking battle. And conveniently, as Bran says, he will expose himself. Oh, how convenient! What a wonderful plot device. He will expose himself. So I know, because in the past, and I see everything, I'm the memory of the world. I've seen that he's tried before, and I know that he'll try again, because he's tried before. Inductive reasoning tells me this. I know he will try. Wow, that's real convenient. We can wipe out the whole enemy army, and the Night King knows that if he's killed, that'll wipe out his whole army, but he exposes himself anyway because, I don't know, stupidity. He's supposed to be the biggest threat to the fucking world, but he's a moron. Okay. So he exposes himself because, he's overconfident. Okay, I guess you could say that. Full of hubris, thinks he's won, thinks he's safe. He's surrounded by his undead, his own men. He satisfied himself that everybody in that glade is dead. So he approaches Bran, looks down at Bran like, okay, bitch, you've lost. Doesn't speak. And by the way, this final moment, I was hoping for something more. I was hoping for some kind of reveal. Something. Not just, stone face. I mean, the fucking guy smiled when he got fire breathed at him, for God's sake. You'd think he could have done something, reacted in some way, finally talked even. Maybe laid out some of his evil plans as the enemy, as the bad guy always likes to do when he meets the good guy and thinks he's won. No, nothing. Nothing. Just stands there, and then Bran just kind of looks down. Slight signal of defeat, maybe. You could interpret it how you want, but he kind of looks down, then looks back up, and the Night King goes, okay. He goes to reach for his sword. And this is another thing that don't make sense to me. Generally speaking, when you're an assassin and you're attacking somebody from behind, what you don't want to do is announce your presence, especially when it's not especially when it's an uber powerful, super powered, overpowered enemy who can throw fucking javelins 2 miles and take dragons out of the fucking air with those fucking javelins. He's got to have some mean fucking mystical strength in those fucking arms. You don't generally want to announce your presence to someone like that who you're trying to sneak up on and kill. But apparently, Arya, this master fucking ninja assassin, who's the best fighter in the world, the best assassin on Earth apparently, without hardly any training, I don't know how that works, she decides to scream before she gets to him, because, oh yeah, he's super strong, super fast, but he can't turn around in time to stop me. Really? Well, turn around he did and caught your ass in midair. And by the way, that's another problem I have. Where did this fucking guy come from? Where did she come from? Where did this gal come from, huh? The whole fucking glade is surrounded by undead. It's surrounded by whites, and right behind the fucking Night King is a whole bunch of his fucking White Walker generals. Where'd she come from? Did she learn how to fly suddenly? And we saw, remember the one scene, so right before, foreshadowing, we saw the Walker's hair move, the White Walker's hair move, like a whoosh. What is she, the Flash? She can move so fast she can't be seen. And by the way, the Flash couldn't even move that fast. When he moved, you saw a blur, the after image of his passing. How the hell did she get in there and stay invisible until she decided to jump at him from behind, and behind him are a bunch of fucking whites? No explanation. She has the ability to be invisible. Oh, where'd she get that? She got all these fucking powers and fighting skills and abilities. What was with the knife throwing, by the way? In the second episode, the one where she slept with Gendry. Don't get me started on that. Well, where did she learn knife throwing? I didn't see any knife training in the fucking temple of the faceless men. We're just supposed to assume that she had all this training. We didn't see it, but it happened. Okay, all right, yeah, whatever. So she jumps at him, screaming. You see her screaming. You could hear it. And she screamed before she got to him. What kind of retard are you? I'm supposed to believe you're the best fighter, best assassin in the fucking world. Get the fuck out of here. No soup for you. You lose. That's so stupid. So he catches her, and he grabs her hand and grabs her throat, right? Well, yeah, was it like this? Yeah. So both arms are engaged, right? And so what does Arya do? Well, she drops the knife. This is, again, we saw this in that episode where she met Brienne and they sparred, where she switches the dagger to the other hand. So she dropped the blade to the other hand and then used that to stab him through what was apparently, I guess, a chink in the armor. I didn't see a chink. It wasn't plate armor that he was wearing. That's obvious. I would have thought it would be a little harder, though. Whatever he was wearing, it was some kind of armor. It wouldn't even be that easy to stab through leather armor, really. Not if it was hardened, boiled leather, but whatever. Okay, she stabs him, and it wasn't actually in the exact place that the shard of dragon glass was inserted. That was inserted here, and he was stabbed to the side, but apparently, I guess it stabbed his heart. It didn't look, the angle didn't look right. It didn't look like the kind of angle that would get to his heart. But anyway, she stabbed him. He fell. Now, I don't know what happened to his super speed. I mean, I guess you could assume that he just figured that she dropped it because he was squeezing her wrist so hard, or that she just dropped it and he didn't know why, and she dropped it. Okay, she's given up, or she's whatever. But, I mean, it's dropping. I mean, I can catch stuff that drops. Yes, his other arm is engaged, but again, what happened to his super speed, super strength? I mean, he spun around and caught her mere inches from him, but he couldn't see that coming? Okay. And so, of course, she killed him, and then all the other whites died. And by the way, how did they know that? I was wondering about that. How exactly did they know that if they killed him, every other white would die? I mean, is it just an assumption? Jon said, well, he made all them, so if we unmake him, that will unmake the rest. How did you know this? Because you killed that one white. They killed one white, and saw a bunch of its followers, a bunch of its minions drop dead. So from that, he extrapolated that the same thing would happen to everything if you killed the Night King. They're not the same thing. Now, you can assume correctly, you can pretty much extrapolate correctly that if you killed any other lesser white, you remember the season 7 where they went to get a white bee on the wall, and they encountered that patrol with the one White Walker and a bunch of undead with him, and when Jon killed him with his Valyrian steel longsword, all but one died. He extrapolated from that if you killed the Night King, the same thing would happen to every undead, as well as every White Walker that he created from Craster's kids. That's an awful big stretch that I don't think you have the justification to make. But whatever. There's so much plot armor in this show, and things being done just for convenience's sake, and plot devices, and lots of illogical bullshit and horrible battle tactics. Hey, logic and reason out the fucking window. So, my overall, and by the way, I will admit, when it happened, I was screaming. I was like, holy shit, when she killed the Night King. I was shocked. But after the episode, I mean, it wasn't like this type of like glee or wonder or anything. I was just surprised, right? I was real surprised, and believe it or not, it's very difficult to surprise me. I'm not shocked too often. So I thought that was pretty cool, right? But afterwards, I wasn't too happy. I mean, I felt this deep sense of disappointment, like, yeah, this is kind of a letdown. Every wrong and bad thing that happened in the show, I kind of just, put it aside and ignored it because I wanted to like it. I wanted to like it and think it was a great episode. It was a good episode. It had some redeeming qualities. Had a lot of fighting, which I like. But beyond that, a horrible lighting, the most atrocious battle tactics I've ever seen. I mean, it's like the show itself. It's like the people who decided on what battle tactics would be used had just seen a bunch of bad movies. I saw Troy with Brad Pitt. I know how to fight in a siege and do battle like that. It's like this person watched a bunch of bad and inaccurate 50s medieval movies with dudes wearing tights and shit and fighting with little fucking rapiers and poking at each other and shit. And I mean, it's like they got their battle tactics from watching movies, essentially, which were all, in many cases, most anyway, not all, but most very inaccurate in their representation of how people of those periods fought. And these tactics were horrible. I mean, I guess, most people ain't as sophisticated as I am in regards to tactics and assessing them, but I was let down entirely. And then, at the very end, the scene ends with Melisandre, the old bitch with the fucking cobweb-ridden pussy, walks out of the gates, and, I forget his name. Davos immediately appears behind her. He can't wait to chop her fucking head off. He hates this bitch because she killed, Stannis' daughter, who he loved like his own kid. So he's chomping at the bit to fucking chop her head off. And she walks out into the snow wearing little or nothing, right? Very little skimpy dress, and takes off that fucking choker with the gem that gives her some kind of connection, I guess, to the powers and the realm of the Lord of Light that's channeled into her through the gem, and maintains this youthfulness and beauty, and that disappeared. And I guess without the choker, she was literally so old at that point and so exhausted from her efforts at the battle. What with lighting 40,000 swords on fire, which then promptly got used for nothing. I guess that exhausted her to the point where she was near death anyway, and then so, and she dropped dead. The end. All right, so that's it for that episode, and I can't believe I ranted that long. Holy shit, this has been a long fucking show. I didn't expect it to be this long. It's got to be the longest rant about the Game of Thrones, at least that episode. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not even going to open the phones. I think I've said enough. All right, guys, so if you like the show and like my content, please visit my website, therealistphilosopher.com/donate. Or actually, visit Patreon. On Patreon, I'm the Realist Philosopher, and that's for per piece creations. I create 3 pieces a week. You could donate as little as 50 cents per creation. That'd be like $6 a month. Or you can go to Realist Philosopher. So www.patreon.com/therealistphilosopher for per piece creations, and patreon.com/realistphilosopher for monthly donations if you would like to support my work. Also, let me know what you think in the comments section about the episode. Was I right on the money about the horrible tactics and the overpowered female characters? Did I say again that none of the female fighters died except for little Lyanna fucking Mormont, and she went out in a blaze of glory destroying a fucking giant? Absurdity. Let me know what you think about all that in the comments section. Please like and subscribe to my channel and follow me on social media if you'd like. And by the way, there's other things I could pick apart about the tactics and certain aspects of the episode, but I think I've ranted on long enough. So follow me on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Instagram. You'll see all the links at the bottom of the page. If you'd like to be on the show in the future, email me at admin@therealistphilosopher.com. That's admin@therealistphilosopher.com. Or Skype me at The Realist Philosopher. That's my Skype name, The Realist Philosopher, and ask to be added to my contact list, or just send me a message. And then I'll add you as a contact, and you can be on the show in the future. Although you don't have to be a contact at this point to come onto the show. Though I'm not sure I will let anybody on who isn't a contact. And that's it. I will see you tomorrow. Same time, same channel. I'm the Realist Philosopher, and I wish you a good day.